Welcome to the UGC lecture series. This is the EPG Pathashala lecture series on the subject of computer science, and the paper we are talking about is machine learning. Now, in this and the next module, we are going to discuss a very interesting machine learning technique called as genetic algorithms. We will be discussing the basics of the biological aspects of genetic algorithms, as well as some of the methods in which computation is done based on this genetic fundamentals. So, these are the people responsible for the creation of this module, and we will now talk about the learning objectives of this module. The first module, as I told you, on genetic algorithms, will discuss the what is meant by genetic algorithms. It will understand the biological nature of genetic algorithms, or the basis of genetic algorithms, and then we will understand the advantages and disadvantages of genetic algorithms. And the keywords we are going to talk about are genetic algorithms, crossover, mutation and selection. Okay. So, let us talk about what is genetic algorithm first. It is based on the simulation of natural law of evolution of a species by natural selection. So, basically in nature, when the evolution happens, there is a natural law of evolution of any species, and it is done by something called natural selection. So, that is why that is how species are propagated down the generations. So, it is applied to a variety of function optimization problems. What genetic algorithms is applied to a variety of function optimization problems. It started with function optimization, but today genetic algorithms is used in a variety of other optimization problems also, and also other than optimization problems. And it is highly effective in searching large poorly defined search space. If now you want to search and you know all the features of the search space, then it is easy to define a machine learning algorithm for that. But if it is necessary to search effectively in large poorly defined search space, even in the presence of difficulties such as high dimensionality, multimodality, discontinuity and noise, then genetic algorithms works fairly well. Okay. Now, let us talk about the history of genetic algorithms, or GAs as they are called. It is not new. In far back in 1962, John Holland's work on adaptive systems and laid the foundation for what later came to be called as genetic algorithms. And in 1972, the publication of a book, Adaptation in Natural and Artificial Systems, by the same Holland and his students and colleagues, laid the foundation for other people to use this the concept of genetic algorithms. Early to mid 80s, genetic algorithms were being applied to a broad range of problems. It started being applied, and others started using it and applying it to variety of problems, artificial problems, I mean not natural adaptation. And in 1992, John Koza, he used genetic algorithm to evolve programs to perform certain tasks, and he called this group of programs as genetic programming. So, we have genetic basis, then genetic algorithms and genetic programming. So, before we go along, let us look at what is the vocabulary. So, the vocabulary that is used in this component of machine learning is vastly different from what we have been using till now. So, we will look at it has come from the natural species and natural from nature, biological nature. So, individual, what do you call as individual here is any possible solution out of a large number of solutions, that is called an individual. Population is a group of all individuals. So, all the possible results that can come, okay, is called as group of individuals. Out of that, we will a solution is called as, any possible solution is called as an individual, and all possible solutions together forms a population. Trait is a possible aspect of features of an individual. So, of a solution, features, that is called trait. Allele is the possible settings of the trait. So, that means values of a trait. For example, trait could be color, and that allele or the values that the color can take could be black bond, or trait could be the income, and the allele could be the income range, and the allele could be less than 10,000, 10,000 to 20,000 and so on. And locus is the position of a gene in a chromosome. We will come to that later, we will understand it. And genome is a collection of chromosomes or an individual. So, an individual is represented as a genome or a collection of chromosomes, and the position of a gene in a chromosome is called the locus. Genotype is the encoded representation of an individual, that is called as genotype, and phenotype is the decoded representation of the individual. So, these are some of the terminologies that is used in genetic algorithms. We have more. So, mapping, it decodes the phenotype, that is the mutation is the variability operation that modifies a genotype, a variability operation. We will come into detail as we go along. And then if you have studied your mutation, crossover and all that in your biology, you will remember what this means. And the recombination or crossover is a variability operator mixing genotypes. Okay. Modifies genotype is mutation, mixes genotypes is crossover or recombination, and fitness, performance of a phenotype with respect to a objective. So, that is the fitness. So, everything is decided by fitness. So, a fitness of an individual. So, whether he goes to the next generation, fitness. So, the performance of that phenotype with respect to a particular objective. So, the fitness is determined by the objective. Okay. And finally, we have iteration. In genetic algorithm terminology, it is called as generation. The number of generations, the number of iterations. So, when do we use a genetic algorithm? That is the next question we have to answer. So, it is not that all cases you can use genetic algorithm, there are certain places where you use genetic algorithm. So, it is an alternate solution are too slow or overly complicated. So, genetic algorithm is not a very fast solution. So, when other solutions itself are too slow or overly complicated, then you try, it is a good time to try genetic algorithms. You need an exploratory tool to examine new approaches. You want to try out new approaches for your problem, then it would give you an unexpected solution even. So, that way it is an exploratory nature. So, the problem that you have with you is similar in some way to a problem that has already been solved using genetic algorithm, then that is good place to use genetic algorithm. And you want to have, you have a solution, you want to use genetic algorithm and hybrid, you want to find a hybrid solution to your problem, then that is a good place to, it is a good, it is good for hybridization. And then the benefits of the GA technology, whatever the benefits that suits your requirements, okay, then that is a place also for using GA. We will see what are the benefits of GA later on in this module. So, some typical genetic algorithm application. So, we look at the domain. So, the first one is the domain is the control, where we have control applications given here. Then we have design like semiconductor layout, aircraft design, keyboard configuration and so on are typical design problems that are solved. Then scheduling problem, okay, scheduling problem is very some of that is given here. You can have scheduling of aircraft, okay, so facility scheduling and so on. And then you have trajectory planning, planning is another operation that we do. Then you have machine learning applications like optimization, improving the algorithms and so on. And you have also other application like filter in signal processing like filter design, that is again a design problem. And then you have classifier problem, prisoner dilemma in game playing, and you also have other problems, traveling salesman, typical problems that you use, traveling salesman and such problems, or graph coloring problem, such partitioning problem, all these are also tried out with GA approach. So, some of the applications, a number of applications, robotics again it has been tried out in the trajectory planning and so on. So, these are some of the GA applications. There are other applications also. We have given one type of domain as a classification, you can have other classification types also. Now let us go to the biological background. So, the biological background, the core is the cell. Okay. So, every animal cell is a complex, is of complex nature, and it consists of many small factories working together, that is a cell. And the nucleus is the center of the cell. The nucleus contains the genetic information, this is the basis of any biological background. And now we will go to the chromosomes. So, what are these chromosomes? The genetic information that is stored in what are called as chromosomes, and genetic decides a lot of factors for us in nature, humans. So, each chromosome is built of DNA, okay, and chromosomes in human forms pairs. Okay. So, there are 23 such pairs in human. The chromosome is divided into parts and these are called as genes. Okay. Genes code for properties, there are genes code for properties, and every gene has a unique position in the chromosome locus. So, if you take a chromosome, every gene occupies a particular locus and there is a code for the gene, gene code which decides the properties. So, that is the biological background of chromosomes, and chromosome is the basis of we have used adapted chromosomes to for genetic algorithms. Now, let us talk about the biological background of genetics. The entire combination of genes is called the genotype. So, all the genes put together is called genotype. A genotype develops to a phenotype. Alleles can be either, okay. Now, remember alleles form the phenotype. Okay. Now, the phenotype, a trait and an allele is a value of a trait. So, depending upon that value, the allele can be either dominant or recessive. For example, some particular characteristic like black can be dominant or black can be recessive in color in some application, and dominant alleles always express, that is they will be expressed from it will be taken from genotypes to form phenotype, while recessive alleles can survive in the population for many generation, but it need not be expressed at all. So, it cannot be, it need not go form a phenotype at all. So, there are this is as far as nature, biological nature is concerned. Then we talk about biological background again, reproduction. Reproduction of genetical information is what we are bothered about, and here we talk about mitosis and meiosis. So, mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis is copying the same genetic information into the new offspring. There is no exchange of information at all. This is called mitosis, and it is the normal way of growing multi cell structures and organs, like organs. But meiosis is the basis of sexual reproduction. We have studied this in biology. So, this is the basis of sexual reproduction, and after meiotic division, two gametes appear in the process. So, that is the idea. So, you have two types of reproduction, mitosis and meiosis. We are more bothered about the meiosis aspect of sexual production, where two gametes are appear after the reproduction. So, let us go back to reproduction. In reproduction, two gametes conjugate into a zygote, which will become the new individual. So, this is how genetic reproduction occurs, and hence genetic information is shared between the parents in order to create a new offspring. This is the basis that we are going to use. During reproduction, errors can occur. What do you mean by error? We will come to that. And due to these errors, genetic variation exists. Now, should you have errors or not? Otherwise, we will have replications of people right down the generation. We do not, natural evolution is not like that. There are some variations, and that is why you have genetic variation. Okay. So, most important errors are recombination, crossover, mutation. Okay. Crossover means some of from both the parents exactly will not be replicated. There will be some combination of happening, and that is called as crossover, and sometimes one particular value will be replaced by another value, opposite value maybe, and that is called as mutation. This is the error that is introduced in biological reproduction, and that is why there is variation. As evolution happens, there is variation. Now, let us look at natural selection. That is how parents are selected. So, origin of species is the preservation of favorable variations and rejection of unfavorable variations. So, basically when the species evolution of species take place, the basic condition there is it will try to preserve the favorable variations and will try to reject the unfavorable variations, so that they are stronger as we go down the generations. There are more individuals born that can survive. So, there is a continuous struggle in life. So, it is not that all individuals who are born can survive, it depends on if it is a favorable variation. Individuals with an advantage have a greater chance to survive, and it is called as survival of the fittest. So, it is finally that. So, people who are very fit only will survive, the rest of them will die down. So, that is the survival of the fittest policy, which again we will be using as a core for genetic algorithm. An important aspect in natural selection are adaptation to the environment. So, we want the new the selection that of to occur in such a way that there is adaptation to the environment and isolation of populations in different groups. There should be groups formed which cannot mutually mate. So, that also is an important aspect of natural selection. If small changes in the genotype of individuals are expressed easily, okay, especially in small population, we talk of genetic drift. So, if small changes in the genotypes of the individuals are expressed easily, then we talk about as genetic that aspect as genetic drift. So, that is about natural selection. So, when you take genetic algorithm and when we take nature, we will just the metaphor that we are going to use. So, optimization problem in genetic algorithm is talked as environment and nature. Feasible solutions in genetic algorithm is talked as individual living in that environment in case of nature, and solutions quality or the fitness function as we call is the individual's degree of adaptation to the environment, surrounding environment, that is nature. So, basically we are talking about an optimization problem, we are talking about feasible solution, and we are talking about solutions quality or fitness. So, those are the metaphors that we take from nature in this way. So, the computer model introduces some simplifications relative to the real biological mechanisms. We are not using the real biological mechanisms, but surprisingly complex and interesting structures have emerged out of the evolutionary algorithm. So, we are using very lot of simplifications. In spite of that, there are some complex and interesting structures that have emerged out of this genetic and evolutionary algorithms, as they call it. Genetic algorithms are also called as evolutionary algorithms because it is about evolution in nature. Now, this is the evolutionary cycle. Okay. So, what is the evolutionary cycle? We have parents, you have a population. So, you initiate and evaluate the population, and from that you do the selection process. So, from the selection you get the parents, and then you do a modification to get modified offspring, then you evaluate the offspring. If they are not very good, then you discard those offspring, otherwise you evaluate the offspring and put it in the population, so that they go into the next generation. So, this is the evolutionary cycle. So, what you do, you select, we have not gone into the details, you select the parents, select the good ones, do some modification, create children. From the children you take only those children that are fit or are good and put it back into the evolutionary cycle, otherwise you discard them. That is the evolutionary cycle. Now, let us go to the definition of the basic genetic algorithm. Okay. That is what we are going to do now. You start now, here we are going to talk not in terms of nature, we are talking about the actual algorithm. You start with a large population of randomly generated attempted solutions to a problem. So, you first have to start with a population. The population here is all the possible solutions to a problem. So, you can randomly select, it need not be actual solutions you have found out by some other means, it randomly generated solutions to a problem you can find out. Then you have to repeatedly do the following, repeatedly means each iteration or each generation as it is called in. So, what do you do? Evaluate each of the attempted solutions. So, you have got a set of solutions, initial solutions which can be random, but as you go along in each iteration it becomes better and better, supposed to become better and better. So, evaluate each of the solutions. Okay. Then keep a subset of these solutions as the best ones, keep a subset. Okay. Then what you do? You use these solutions to generate a new population. Okay. So, you from the attempted solutions you evaluate it, keep a set, and from that use these ones to generate a new population, and you keep doing this again and again. So, now you have a population, evaluate it, select it, do the modification, create new ones and go on. Quit when you have a satisfactory solution or you have run out of time. So, you have reached the number of iterations you are willing to do, or you have run out of time. That is the basic algorithm. So, you start with the population, evaluate it, select the good ones and generate a new set, go back and keep doing this. Now, what are the design decisions you have to take for this? First one is high flexibility and adaptability because of many options. So, there are many options available in GS, that is why it has high flexibility and adaptability. Remember, adaptability is one of the major basis of genetic algorithms. So, problem representation you can do it in very many different ways, we will come to that later. Genetic operators with parameters also can be different, crossover, mutation, how you do that can be different. The mechanism of selection, how do you select, that can be different, how do you select the parents. The size of the population you are going to use, that also can be different. The fitness function you define can be different. So, basically the problem representation, the genetic operators and the parameters, the mechanism of selection, genetic operators are basically crossover and mutation. Mechanism of selection is how you select the parents, the size of the population that you want to retain in each generation probably or even start with, and how do you evaluate the fitness of a solution. So, depending on that it will be different. Decision are highly problem dependent, you cannot make a decision saying that okay, in any case all these are good, no. So, the parameters are not independent, you cannot optimize them one by one, you have to take everything together so that the GA will work well. Okay. So, what are the hints for parameter search? So, basically you have to find a balance between exploration and exploitation. That is, I want to explore new search regions, that is called as exploration, and exploitation is exhaustive search in the current region. So, in genetic algorithm you can do both, that is you can explore, find new search regions, or you can exploit. You see, you are actually in a genetic algorithm you are selecting some parents or some parents. So, you can try to select in a small current search space, you can try to select the parents or try to find new individuals. So, that is exploration versus exploitation. And parameters can be adaptive, example from high in the beginning in exploration to low, that is exploiting, or even can be subject to evolution themselves, that is the parameters. So, balance is influenced by mutation and recombination, create individuals that are in the new regions, that is diversify, and fine tune in the current region. So, the mutation recombination is actually helping you to find to do exploration or exploitation. Selections focus on interesting regions. So, how you the selection will on the other hand focus on interesting regions, and diversity is brought in by mutation and recombination. So, keep in mind, start population that has a lot of diversity, invest in search time in areas that have proven good in the past, loss of diversity over evolutionary time. So, you start with diverse, and then what you find good you go and search in that region itself. So, actually what happens, diversity decreases as you go down the generations. Premature convergence will be quick loss of diversity, poses high risk of getting stuck in a local optima. So, if you have a premature convergence, it may be because of loss of diversity and you get stuck in a local optima. And evolvability, fitness landscape should not be too rugged, that means how you decide on the fitness. You have to take care of the heredity of traits, and small genetic changes should be mapped to small phenotype changes, only then the evolvability will be good. Now, let us look at GA operators. Now, what are the GA operators? First is selection. Selection is we want to focus on the fittest individuals. So, you have to evaluate the individuals. Individuals are those in the population, remember population consists of individuals. So, you evaluate the individuals and you focus on the fittest individuals. The recombination, you do not want to use the same pair, create the same type of child. So, you want to create a child that is different from the parent. So, you have alternative solution to the population, that is what you do through recombination. And mutation, you make sure that the most of the search space is reached, that is you it is nowhere in that, I mean it is different from both the parents slightly. So, that is why you are trying to go away from the search space a little bit, and most of the search space is covered, not only what is the search space covering the parents. So, what are the most recent inputs from biology? Populations are spatial, example for speciation. So, they are spatial. So, can you use that information? Interaction, mating and competition localized to maintain diversity. So, the interaction between the population is actually, this is we are talking about the biological aspect. The mating and the competition is more among local people, and populations have structure, that is there is a niche protection. It is not that all the populations do not have any structure. Competition will be stronger if many individuals do the same to maintain diversity. So, if all the individuals are the same, the competition will be stronger, and deployed it with dominance or recessivity. Endpoint crossover and other variants have also been considered. Initially we have only very few crossover points, we will come to that later. And morphogenes instead of simple function mapping, allowing for modularity, making crossover less fatal and so on. So, these are some of the major new inputs that have come in from biology for genetic algorithms. Use of this has just started coming out. Now, convergence and diversity is what we were talking. See, basically in genetic algorithms what we are trying to do is, we are trying to start with a population of some attempted solution and reach the solution. When will you reach the solution? When convergence occurs. But if you have convergence very fast, that means you are not exploring all the solutions. So, you need to explore all the possible solutions before you converge. So, that is the diversity aspect. So, convergence or premature convergence, the GA continues while fitter chromosomes existed in the population. The population will be converged by GA, so that all individuals are same as fitness as each other, but the converged population will not be evolved no matter if the best solution is found. So, it will not evolve if best solution is found, if not it is premature convergence. Diversity is maintained in genes. Individuals will with the same fitness might have different gene strings, same fitness, okay. And the chance to survive if environment changes. So, adaptability is brought in by diversity. Chance to break the premature convergence by mutation operations is also the possibility of divergence. Now, let us talk about phenotype and genotype. Phenotype is to describe what an individual looks like, the display after fitness function calculation. Okay. Genotype is to describe the genes on a chromosome. Individuals with the same phenotype may have totally different genotype. So, that is possible. Genotype maintain diversity for chance of changes. Population with the same genotype individuals still can be evolved by mutation. So, it is not that if everyone if different populations have the same genotype individuals, it is not that you will come up with the same final solution, because of the mutation operator. The mutation can be done differently. Mutation operator is too strong, much diversity in genotype and no population could be converged if the mutation is too strong. Mutation is too weak, there is less chance to change and premature convergence will occur. So, it is actually it is a fight between convergence and diversity. If you do convergence, mutation is too weak, premature convergence will occur. If mutation is too strong, then no population will be converged at all, because you will keep on getting different type of individuals. So, next is exploitation and exploration. Exploitation, we have just discussed it. You take the current search information from the thing and you try to exploit it by going away from that. Try to find all the solution that exists in that. So, you are trying to focus on a particular area, and from selection operator and crossover operator, basically you have exploitation. Exploration comes into the picture because of mutation. So, this will try to explore a place that does not exist in the population, all possible, tries to explore the search space. So, implies search whose will be through the entire search space, and this is a mutation operator that brings and the crossover operator that brings in exploration. So, you can see exploitation is through selection and crossover, while exploitation is searching the existing search space, while exploration is trying to find new spaces in the new parts of the search space, and this is by mutation and crossover. Important task is balancing between the two. If you have too much of exploitation, then you are not going for divergence. If you have too much of exploitation, you are not going towards convergence. So, it is a balance between the two. Too high exploitation will lead to, as I already told you, will lead to premature convergence, and too high exploration will be non-convergence, and you will have lot of diversity, but there will be non-convergence. So, what are some of the benefits of GAs? Let us look at that. Concept is easy to understand, because we have already studied it in biology, and it is modular and separate from the application. You can understand it separately. It supports multi-objective optimization, that is possible. Good for noisy environments, it works well for noisy environments. Always an answer gets better with time. You always get an answer, but the fitness will not be as you expect. So, it keeps on, it improves with time, and inherently parallel and can be easily distributed in today's computing world. and many ways to speed up and improve a GA and a based application as knowledge about the problem domain is gained. As you gain more and more knowledge about the problem domain, it is possible to speed up and improve a solution. Easy to explore previous or alternative solutions, and flexible building blocks to hybrid applications. Remember that some of the problems were more suited depending on the application. Some of the characteristics of or benefits of GA technology are that it is modular, it supports multi-objective optimization, noisy environments it supports, and you want incremental learning to happen, that is a good place, and parallel, it is parallelizable. So, all these are some of the benefits of GA technology, and it is a substantial history and a lot of people have used it. But does it not have disadvantage? Yes, it has some disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? No guarantee for optimal solution within finite time, lacks the killer instant. So, there is no guarantee that you will get an optimal time within a given time, optimal solution within a given time. It has a weak theoretical basis, okay, may need extensive parameter tuning. So, sometimes for some problems the parameter tuning has to be very extensive, okay, and search capability is sensitive to parameter settings and operator the operators that you adopt. So, that is another problem, and the representation, fitness, function, even position of bits respectively influence the judgment, okay, of the achievement of the fitness function within the reasonable time. So, this is what you talk about as global optima and local optima. That is, you want a local optimum, but you may end up with a global optimum, but you may end up with a local optimum. And often it is computationally expensive, that is, it is quite slow. So, that is the major disadvantage of genetic algorithms. But then if you have an environment where it is noisy and it is not explainable, you do not have any knowledge about the search space, then this is a good solution. Anyway, you will get a slow solution, solution only in other approaches also. Okay. So, just to summarize what we have done, we have discussed genetic algorithms, we have discussed the biological nature of genetic algorithms, especially in this module, and we have discussed some of the advantages and disadvantages of genetic algorithms. So, with that, we will go in the next module, we will go more in detail into genetic algorithms. Thank you.